You're listening to The Real Deal Conversations, a podcast designed to encourage, inspire, and equip you by sharing real stories and meaningful conversations that bring real life to the surface. I'm your host, Megan Deal. Let's dive in. I am with Tyler Dickerhoof this week. Tyler is a friend of mine who I met in the High Capacity Leaders under Maxwell leadership. And I had, we got together on social media, became friends on social media, and I saw so much value to his content. And I wanted to bring it on the podcast to really specifically talk about leadership and burnout, being a workaholic, and talk about that on here, but really bring awareness to even recognize burnout, recognize when we're in a state of, I am that workaholic they're talking about, and help people navigate through it, hopefully avoid it. I asked you the question, Tyler, is it even avoidable? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Megan, for having me. Glad to be here spending time with you. And of course, all your listeners, everyone that pours into your community. Let me answer the first question. Burnout, is it avoidable? Yeah. One of the things that I think of there as we discussed that is not everyone faces burnout. Meaning, we can go through long hours and, work from early in the morning to late at night and do it day after day after day after day. And there's people that do that don't necessarily, quote unquote, face burnout. Mm-hmm. And there's two things that I've experienced, whether I've seen through others or what I've contemplated myself, is burnout usually, in my opinion, comes from doing things that you don't feel aligned or capable of doing. Mm-hmm. When I've seen my wife burn out, when I've seen other people in our community burn out, they usually are doing things they feel like they have to do, but they're not skilled at, they're not passionate about, they're not fulfilled by doing. Another way that I also see burnout playing out is I'm doing things maybe that I can do, but what the heck am I doing it for? It seems like I'm constantly just going through the motion. It's just like, what am I doing this for? Like, I'm working like crazy and I just feel like there's no progress. There's nothing, there's no carrot, ahead of me. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm just going through the motions every day. I do the same thing, clock in, clock out. I don't know if you're a Severance fan. My friends have told me about the show. I haven't heard of it. I'm like 3 episodes into it, and I can't really get it. But it's very much a little bit of, it's perpetual burnout, because in Severance, kind of giving listeners, if they know, they know. If they don't know, they essentially sever their mind from their body, and they have this implant put in their brain. So when they go to work, it's a different person. They don't know they're outie, and they're an outie. Okay. That aside, one of the, again, this idea of burnout often comes when we're stretched at work, we're stretched at home, and again, we feel like there's no progress in either. And so to your question and going back to it, is it avoidable? Yeah. It's, do we let ourselves get into that spot? Do we recognize it when it's happening? And here is the great caveat. If you feel that only you can do it, even though you're not skilled at doing it, you're going to burn yourself out. Yeah. There's one of my mentors, Craig Rochelle, who, has implored upon people. It's like, hey, if somebody can do it 80% as well as you, have them do it. Stop doing it. And, I've often seen where people are hesitant to delegate, to, bring others into the fold, because one, they are so worried about judgment that if it only gets done 80% as well, they have this massive fear that people are going to think less of them.
Wow.
And I think that's a major root of burnout, because we look at that, it's like, I have to do it, I have to do it perfect, because if I don't do it perfect, they're going to think I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's all made up in our heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if all of a sudden, Megan, you were sharing about your coffee.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes in and, you're there, they know you own it. And, Mary is working there. And Mary is, and they see you actively guiding and teaching and mentoring. Say you're there every day, serving them coffee. And then all of a sudden Mary's there and they see you in the background. And Mary doesn't get it quite right. She doesn't do it quite as well as you, Megan. Is that person going to be like, this coffee shop sucks? I can't believe. No. They're going to have grace because they're going to realize, man, I appreciate what she's doing. I appreciate she's guiding someone.
Yeah.
And we have a lot more grace in that than if we expect someone to be always perfect. It's just like, hey, I'm training this person. I'm lifting them up because we've all been there ourselves. And we end up having more grace from people than we do for ourselves when we're learning and growing and developing.
Yes. Why do you think we have more grace for others than ourselves? That's a huge issue.
It's very much this way.
Yeah.
We judge others by their actions, and us by our intentions. And so the backside of that is when we see someone's actions and we can look at it with our own intentions, we're like, oh, I know they're trying.
Yeah.
And it's also, that takes a very positive mindset. There's a lot of people that are maybe disenfranchised, are judging themselves, are constantly in fear of what others are thinking of them. And what I've seen in those people is everything someone does is to hurt, harm, or take advantage of them. They do the opposite of what we just talked about. They don't give people grace. They look at, you did that on purpose. You made my cup of coffee like crap on purpose. Instead of thinking, oh, she's just trying.
Yeah.
She's new. She's just trying. She's like, oh, no, you had her do it because you knew I wouldn't like it because you don't like me.
Yeah.
Because and just all these stories. And what I find is people that have those stories are very much disenfranchised themselves, and they've yet to really come to grips and understand and value who they are. And so they're constantly in that struggle that everyone's judging me. And so with everyone judging me, if I'm not perfect, they're all of a sudden are making up stories about me. Those things lead to burnout.
Yeah. Burnout, for the longest time, I thought burnout was solely, I've done too much and I've exhausted my brain. I've exhausted myself. Yeah. That's burnout. And then I realized, oh, wait, that's not, there is truth to that, like exhausted myself. Yeah. But burnout for me looks like, so I have to be physically moving. I am ADHD. I am diagnosed ADHD. And when I am not, my whole life, even in school, when I am not moving, that is when I get in trouble. And I need to be, and so, but the other thing too is, I like to be challenged. And so if I am getting bored, I will create something that is a challenge to re-up the motivation. Like, okay, so I was in a position that I genuinely love. I still love the organization. I'm on the board for the organization now. But when I was on staff there, it is not a job that I'm using my hands. It is not a job that I am, like, rest for me is going out and building a fence for the chickens. That's rest for me. That's enjoyable. That's like, I love
refreshing.
That. Yes. Satisfying. Yeah. Like for some that would be like, oh, I got to go do that. And I would be like, oh, that's my rest moment. And so, but it was a position that was in office. It was a position that is not using my hands, not actively physical exertion. Now, was I hitting goals? Yes, I was exceeding them because I needed to be challenged in order to be satisfied with the fact that I wasn't able to be moving and on the go. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I burned out because I was not doing something that mentally I was enjoying. I hope that's making sense what I'm saying.
Oh, it does. And I think that's where here's a growth, a personal development understanding is too often we feel like, well, that's just what you have to do. It's like, no. I get to decide what I do. You get to decide what you do. If I work for a CEO, ultimately, I get to decide what I do. Because there's enough agency to go to him and say, hey, Bill, here's the deal. This is where I know I'm at my best. I'm 45. I've figured it out. I've had a process of figuring out this is where I'm at my best, and I'm asking you to give me grace. I'm not good at that. It's going to turn out like crap, and it's going to frustrate me. Can we work so I can do more of where I'm at my best, and we can have someone else do the other stuff? Now, let me ask you this. If you go to a leader and they say, no, sorry, that's your job, or, oh, thank you for recognizing that. Absolutely, we want the best out of you. Which one do you think the leader will get the most out of people?
Recognizing them for their strengths and creating the space to move forward in that. Yeah. And
so if we can understand that about ourselves and we ask those around us to either our employees, people we work with, or our bosses to, hey, this is where I recognize I'm at my best. Now, you better show up and be your best. But the ones that embrace that, they're smart and go with them. And the ones that don't, leave. Go find somewhere else. Because even if you fight through it, what's going to end up happening, you're going to get so frustrated, you're going to quote unquote burn out. And then you're not good to anyone. So just recognize it beforehand and say, hey, this is where I'm at my best. This is what I can do that no one else can do. And unfortunately, I had to learn that going through my career. And it wasn't burnout as much as it was an absolute blow to my confidence. And it took me understanding that, I had unique strengths, and it was trying to find out those strengths. And so again, I wouldn't describe it as being burnout. I think you could look back and say it was, because I just wasn't fulfilled, and I was just downtrodden and beat up. And it's just like, man, I want to do what I can be successful at. And I think that's, again, from a leadership perspective, if we can help people do what they're amazing at, that's all your job ever is.
So now, go on.
I do want to go back to something you said, though. And I want to hinge off of this. You said that you find refreshment, rest when you're active.
Yes. But
I can appreciate that.
Yes.
Absolutely can appreciate that. But what I know is that's exhausting to people. It's exhausting to them because so often people are like, well, I see Megan, she just goes and goes and goes, and she can just keep going forever. I can't do that. I'm sorry. That doesn't work for me. And so one of the great lessons that I had to learn in life, being someone who, like my wife and others will say, I can just go, is I had to learn how to get lazy.
Ooh, what is that? But what does that look like?
It's a tough word. It's a tough word. I don't think
it's bad to get lazy. I'm very curious where you're going to go.
Yes. And so here's your response of like, ooh. And this is when I say it to people and they get it, they're like, all right, I get it. And for someone who is, up at 5 a.m. and they're going all day till 9 o'clock and their rest is, hey, let me go build a chicken coop. Let me go put up, fences around my farm. Let me go do this. Let me go do that. If that's their rest, then everyone else feels stretched and burnt out by them, even though they may be refreshed. And so what I had to learn, and this comes back to empathy, this comes back to being connected with people. I had to learn how to slow down. What I called lazy, and again, I use that term, it's not lazy meaning I'm just not going to wake up in the morning, I'm just going to sit and eat Cheetos and play video games and do nothing. It's like, no, I need to slow down and go at the pace of those around me. Not relinquish who I am to their pace, but in order to bring out the best in them, I had to walk alongside of them. And if I was going out and I was doing this and I was doing that, and so what I had to learn is I had to learn how to do that, to be empathetic, to slow down, so people thought that, oh, Tyler does care about us. It's not all about him. Because those of us that are, find rest by doing, by being extroverted, by going, by allowing our brain to think, by accomplishing something to get progress so we feel fulfilled, that can be exhausting to others. And so it's really important to say, hey, I need to slow down. And I need to come beside you. I need to slow down to go and, on a Saturday when we just don't happen to have anything and my wife just wants to sit and, watch a movie, that I'll do that.
Yeah.
Even though I know there's 16 things that need to get done and it's timely because spring is coming and this or that, I just need to say, I need to sit here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be all day. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. Yeah. And then each of us kind of like, all right, and then I go do my things. But that same thing can happen in an office place. Our mentor, John Maxwell, tells a story about when he was at the church in San Diego. So he's one of the largest churches in the country at that point. And he had a guy that worked for him. His name is Dan Ryland. And I think he was maybe an intern at that point. I don't remember exactly the story. His role doesn't matter. But John is standing in the lobby. It's early in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever. And he's talking to a few people. And Dan walks in carrying his briefcase and he kind of looks at people and beelines it to his office. And so John, excused himself. He goes to the office. He said, Dan, what are you doing? He said, oh, I got so much work. It's like, no. You walked past your work. He went to his office thinking he was doing work. And John said, no. You walked past your work. If we use our penchant of being so active to get the chore done, we'll walk past our work. And it takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of I'm not trying to cover up for my insecurities to say, oh, my work is walking in and smiling and saying hi and spending 30 minutes just talking to the people. I'll get more work done that way than going to my office and just absolutely thinking I can get 16 different things done before people start showing up.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult lesson to learn.
Yeah. I think, as you're saying all of that, what really resonates with me is sitting down and taking the time to sit and not be doing something else while sitting with my kids.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yes. And so what you're saying is really making me as you're saying it, I am internally self-reflecting going, oh, yeah, that is something that I probably have not adjusted. Because I'm going, well, I'm sitting in the chair, they're watching their show, they're sitting in the chair with me, so therefore we're snuggling, we're right there. But am I actually present? Or am I sending an email on my phone and in my mind going, but I'm sitting with them, so we're together. And so you are right. It is slowing down. And that's what, I always love these conversations. I think one of the biggest blessings about having a podcast and having all these different guests, coming on, one of my most favorite things is learning from people and being able to go, oh, yeah, I probably should adjust that. Or, oh, yeah, I didn't think about it like that, and it is. I love the perspective you just gave that it can be exhausting for other people, but because it's the way I feel like I'm so wired, I just keep doing it and not thinking, and not it's not intentional. It's not because I'm like, oh, who cares about, I just don't stop. So I love that perspective. And honestly, I've already in my head as you're talking, I'm like, I'm going home today and sitting with them and not doing a thing. I don't even care if they don't talk to me. I'm going to make sure that I'm sitting there next to them.
Oh, and you will go back crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I will.
It's so abnormal.
Yeah.
That you're again, until you get into that pattern, it's fancy, right? And that's me. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned in leadership.
Yeah.
And it happened 26 years ago. I was a sophomore in college and I had an internship where I worked on a farm a dairy farm close to my parents' house. And it was towards the end of the summer. I'd worked there, through the winter, went back to school, actually I traveled abroad, came back, worked during the summer. And it happened to come to a day, and I show up to work, and the owner of the farm, his name was Carl. He said, we're just talking about, all right, what are we going to get done today? What projects are today? And he goes, well, I'm working for you today. I was like, oh. And he had given me this project to make this water trough for the cows. And he goes, I'm working for you. And so he said, hey, what are we doing? What's the plan? What do you need from me? How this or that? And so we built this water trough during that day. And here's the great lesson. I was 19. He was the owner of the farm. He was in his, mid 40s. And he worked for me that day. And so the level of humility, the level of leadership that showed, again, as we're talking about it, but this is what I want to impress and connect the dots. Oftentimes leaders or parents can say, oh, I can connect with them. Come do a project with me. That's still on your time. Go do their project. For example, we'll go back to the chicken coop. All right, I'm going to go build. We need to do this. And you say, hey, kids, come help me. Let's do this together. That's your time, not theirs. If you go to them and say, hey, what do you want to do today? Mom, I want to go play basketball. I want to go build this. I want to go do that. And you go do that with them. Find your ability to have rest in that, because it's about them. And as leaders, we have the opportunity to do the exact same. Walk into work and say, I am here to serve you today. What are we doing? And it can be nothing more than taking that time to show them, I care about you. You are important to me. You are my job. And so I'm going to say, hey, I'm working for you today.
That's so good.
And the two of them are not equal, meaning, hey, come spend time with me, Megan. Come, do this or that. It's all about me and whatever I want to accomplish. It's not about you. And that's what we get wrong. Instead of, if the tables are turned and then you're like, they see me. They care about me. I am important. I have value. Blows, it'll, when you stop and think about it, it'll blow your mind.
That is my CEO at Big Bro. She was so good. I keep saying was. She is so good at recognizing people for who they are and moving forward accordingly. My biggest thing that I had to learn, and I'd like to say I've gotten better at it. I don't know. We'll see. Well, other people, the opinions out there, I don't know. But I feel, and I can talk to people according to their personality. I am good at that. I'm good at reading a room. I'm good at reading a personality, moving forward like that accordingly. However, where I have to grow and have been learning, just because the expectation I have on myself is up here, doesn't mean that it should be like that for everybody. It does. Just because my expectation on me is, you guys can't see me, but I just put my hand like all the way to the roof. That doesn't mean that it should be like that for the people working around me. And I have to learn that just because I feel I can do it, just because I have the will to do it, I have to respect the fact that that's not everybody else. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But that's hard for me. That's hard for me.
One of the, you admire the people that make it all seem so easy. Right? The person that's easygoing, and you look at, man, they've accomplished so much. They spend time with the family, they go on vacations, they, are starting this nonprofit, that, and it's just like, there's never any frantic, it's just all easygoing. We admire those. And then there's the people that are just exhaust you because they're going a million miles an hour and they're everywhere. And you're like, dude, there's too much. I don't even want that. And one does not accomplish more than the other, vice versa. And that is something that I've learned is the easier that we go about it, the less imposing it is on others. To your point, like one of the things that I had to learn is I had very high expectations of myself as far as work, as far as drive, as far as effort. My intensity would show up and just go. And without ever saying anything to others what I expected of them, they constantly felt like it wasn't enough. I was like, whoa, I have no expectations of you. This is just what I'm doing. And because it was so like go, 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 that's where, again, I had to learn how to be or appear lazy to an extent. And again, it's not lazy. It's just to the right people that get it. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I've shared that with parents like, oh, yeah. And it's when we do that, it makes it more palpable for people to come alongside of us. And once they're alongside of us, that's when we can dial it up. That's when we can say, hey, let's go a little faster. Like, what do you want to get after? What do you want to accomplish? What are your dreams and desires? Let's go chase that. And then all of a sudden, once we're chasing that, the next thing you're going at a sprint and you're running a marathon and you get to the end of it and you're energized and you're refreshed and you're like, look at what we accomplished that touched me right here in my heart. Wow, let's go do it again. Let's do it again. That was so awesome. I didn't get burnout. I'm not exhausted. I'm not overwhelmed because I was accomplishing something great and I was at a pace that I could repeat because it was a pace that fit me, not, oh, I'm having to try to run your race, Meg.
Yeah. So, okay, educate me on this, genuinely. So how do you slow down? So like if I'm, and this is genuinely actually something that I've had an issue with this week. So I love that we're having this conversation because you can help me with the thing that I've been dealing with this week. I have someone, so my brain goes 100 miles a minute. It just does. And so okay, this is how it needs to be done. This is how it needs to be done. This is how it needs to be done. This is the efficient. This is streamlined. And that's how I'm going. How do we streamline this? How do we make this efficient? And I'm just, not everybody's like that.
Nope.
So when they're coming along and they have an idea with something that I just put in, I've already, that was 10 things ago for me. And they're just now coming up with this. And I'm like, wait, I've already moved on. Like we're going. That's not fun for people working alongside me. That sucks for them. That makes them feel like, why am I even doing this with this person? Like, does she even need me? What is my point? And I hate that. Now, I'm really big. I don't know if anybody can tell you, I'm huge on self-reflection. So my weakness is, like, I will get to the point of self-reflection, but then I also have to seek out, like right now, okay, I need some perspective because I see the pain point, but now I'm struggling to get a resolution to the pain point, So when we are moving fast like that, I don't want to burn my people out. I don't want to burn the ones I love the most out because I'm 100 steps forward and that's not a bad thing that they're coming. That means that they savor thought. That means that they have the ability to sit. That's great. How do we blend that, Tyler? How do we, as I say that, what would be your perspective for me, I guess is the best way to just go about that.
So there's two things.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to my mind is the proverb. Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. So in that case, when you think about it, are you just giving people fish and expect them to eat and then learn how to fish? You give somebody a fish, all right, now go fish on your own. Or are you really stopping to say, hey, I'm going to teach you to fish, and then I'm going to let you fish, and I'm going to go over there. Because that's a big difference. And what my wonder is, if the frustration is, if you're going off and doing other things, and they're coming along behind you, and they're like, hold this idea. Are you just giving them a fish, or are you teaching them to fish? Because if you're teaching them to fish, you have to let them struggle to figure out how to best cast the line. You have to let them figure out how to put bait on the hook. And that means like, oh yeah, right. Maybe you put bait on differently than I do. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you can catch a fish. And so it's really that understanding. It's like, what are you aiming to do in this process? If you're already off to the next thing, then why aren't they empowered to deal with whatever they're talking about? Because it's separating where, I need to be the linchpin of what everyone does. There was a situation. My brother worked for me several years ago, and he helped us in our just a different array of things. And one day, my dad, who lives here in Spokane as well, moved here. He said, "Hey, what's your brother doing?" I'm like, I have no clue. And he goes, "Doesn't he work for you?" I'm like, "Yeah." But he does his own thing. He knows what to get done. I trust him. I don't need to worry about what he's going to get done. If he needs something from me, he's going to ask me. And if I need something from him, I'm going to ask him. And my dad was just like mind blown.
Yeah.
He said, I just couldn't do that. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you? And to me, it comes back to that. Do you trust that person? If you don't trust that person, then you got to work on that. But once you, and again, there's a difference between throwing somebody in the deep end and expecting them to figure out how to swim. That doesn't work. But if we've gone to this point, hey, I've taught you how to fish. You need to go fail a little bit. I'm here to help you. But if they're doing something and they came up with an idea, let them run with it, because maybe they'll figure out a better way that works for them. And that means you can go do what only you can do. Yeah. All right. So that's my first thought is, are you giving them a fish or are you teaching them to fish? And the next thing is, when those people come alongside of us, especially as ready, fire, aim people, meaning we don't take time to aim, we just go, right? Go. Yes. It's those people that when we say, hey, thanks for slowing me down. You know what? I already moved past that. Let me come back to it because let me reflect on that. Thank you so much for bringing me back there. What did I miss? What teaching opportunity is there here? What conversation opportunity is there here? It's okay to be already at the next spot. And this is super difficult, especially parents. It's kind of like, dude, we're long past this, but I need to come back to it because there's two things. Either I really didn't teach them how to fish, I just thought I did, or they're giving me an opportunity to reflect, and what they're seeing I didn't see. Our mentor, John Maxwell, always says this, and I love it. And it's something you remind me. And it's going in this situation and saying, hey, what am I missing? What can you see that I can't see? Because when you're either an impatient person like John, or you're already off into the next thing, you've already let that one go, what you end up doing is you miss things. Are they always substantial and like earth-shattering? No. But we miss things, and we can say, I missed that. Okay. Not a big deal. But if you take time to reflect and look back and have somebody said, hey, wait a second here. I'm back here at A and you're already at W. Yeah. I'm still at A. Yeah. Okay. Why are you at A? What do you see at A? I missed that. Great. Now all of a sudden we get back together and we're off and going to the next thing. So those are two things I think about is, are you giving them a fish, or are you teaching them how to fish? And are you allowing their perspective to help you aim better so you're not just firing off into the next horizon and you have to learn lessons over and over again?
Yeah. No, that's good. I really appreciate that. And I think I kind of wonder too, this wondering what that looks like. So at an office space, in career, does that look like, so say your direct is my personality, and then you have someone wanting to, hey, let's look at this, let's tweak it here. What does that look like so that it's still copacetic, so that nobody's frustrated, so that nobody's, as somebody, me, is still learning, okay, wait, I gotta stop. Because when you are like me, it's gonna take a minute to get in that rhythm. It's not like I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna do this, and it's, So what is something in the office space that people who are struggling with this exact conversation and their employees are burning out because they feel not important, not seen, not valued, and feeling like I'm I'm holding people back, when really, like what you just said, they're not holding people back. It's one of their strengths to be able to take time and see what the other didn't. What does that look like in an office space so that it's copacetic, so that it's in rhythm and nobody feels like they're being stepped on or intruded on? What can those conversations look like? Is it, hey, can we have a meeting and I can share some of my ideas? Or what does that look like, Tyler?
I think there's a couple different angles. And the first one I'm going to approach is, say you're a leader that you've recognized, man, people around me are frustrated. Admit it. Accept it. I see you're frustrated with me. Man, I understand. I got to work on this. I'm sorry. Ask for grace. And that forces you to hit the brakes. And other people are like, finally, they admit it.
Yes.
Finally, they admit they are just running us right.
Yeah.
And just ask for grace. Say, hey, if you recognize.
Yeah. And
too often, leaders don't. Or in a lot of our corporate spaces, they think that is the pathway to success. We've mentioned this earlier, especially being I would say, a go person. The greatest barrier in my ability to ever lead, connect, make an impact, influence others is my intensity. It is a barrier. It is a wall. It is a armor to my insecurities. I am intense because I will push through a wall in order that I feel like I can validate this is my value. And too often, we, in the corporate world especially, we celebrate intensity. The grind, the person that, just outworks everyone else, the person that is just almost vicious in their, pursuit. And there is no more toxic behavior in anything cultural or success related. And for me, I didn't understand it until, as a person of faith, God revealed it to me. But this is the challenge. And this is what I would say is, even if you're listening, or say that person that you work with and they're uber intense and it's just running you ragged, it's there. Find a way to come to a place to say, hey, this is what it's like working with you. And it's exhausting because I feel like I never measure up. And maybe you're not in a safe place to do that. And at the same point, leaders, if you're listening and you're thinking, hey, this is just the way it is, this is what I would ask you. Go to someone and say, hey, what is it like working with me? What is it like working for me? And be honest and earnest and listen to them.
Yeah. Because
when we start to look through the window rather than the mirror, we start to see what we really are. A mirror lies. A mirror absolutely lies. It gives you the picture that you're most comfortable with, but it is not what anyone else sees. People tell you, hey, look in the mirror, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And often I look at that. Those are our intentions, not our actions.
Yeah.
And if you look at a mirror, and especially we have cameras, sometimes if you're watching, you're not watching a video, listening, not watching a video, take a picture of yourself and then go look at the picture because that's mirrored and you're like, oh, that isn't what I look like.
Yeah.
That's what you look like.
Yeah.
That's what everyone else sees.
Yeah.
And so when you take a picture of yourself and it's phone facing and you're like, oh, that kind of looks ugly. Well, that's what everyone else sees.
Yeah.
And so take the opportunity to flush whatever's in the mirror and instead ask people, hey, what do you see through the window? What am I like to be around? Oh, dude, you're exhausting. It's too much.
Yeah.
You're an asshole. Oh, okay, I got to own that.
Yeah.
Now, there's also owning where people can be wanting to get back and attacking you. Because then there's some people are like, yeah, I'm cool with it. It's like, okay, well, am I intense? Yeah, but, oh, no, you're intense. Yeah, you're too much. And, the thing that I've learned about intensity, there's a time and place for it. The middle of the night, when your kids walk in your bedroom, flip on the lights because they're scared, and you look at the light and you're just like, make it stop.
Yeah.
It's not, that's intensity where it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
In a studio where you want to be properly lit so you can take pictures and there's a bright light, there's a place for it. And, where we get to the point of being so intense that we, aren't able to hear and listen to others and we become too much, that's when it's a problem. So again, it comes back to this. What do you see? What is it like to work with me?
Yeah.
How do you feel when we, interact? And then it's also going through enough people, because unfortunately we live in a world where people have been told to lie to get through.
Yeah.
And that isn't the truth either. So most often I think leaders are absolutely blind. This is one of the biggest blind spots. And, that's where it can be really difficult. If you've gotten to the point where you can say, this isn't working, and you can accept that, oh, okay, I have to make, a different path forward, that's one thing. But expecting everyone to be that way, the problem is our insecurities are too great in this world to expect enough leaders to have the vulnerability to say, I'm the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's so, again, as you're talking, I'm just thinking too about how it transfers over into parenting.
Oh, yeah.
And how, like yesterday, we were cleaning out the garage, and in my intensity, I think because I do so much, and so that intensity, I don't shut it off. And so we were cleaning out the garage, and my daughter came out there, and her backpack was on the ground. And we found that we have mice in the garage. So I was like, so instead of stopping to explain, hey, we have mice in the garage, I really don't want your backpack in here because I don't want you to open your backpack at school and a mouse pop out, and kindly explaining that, this is how I did it. Your backpack is on the garage floor. There is mice in the garage. Do not put your backpack on the floor again. And it was very direct. It was very to the point. It was like my intensity, because in my head, that's how, again, I am constantly going, let's just efficiency. It's a problem for me. It's if it was done in a more. Now, here's the thing. I also am recognizing it and working on it, but it still is a problem.
So here's the thing. Did you recognize it right now about the conversation with your daughter? Or did you recognize yesterday?
It was yesterday. And I went inside and I explained to her. I said, okay, this is how I should have said it. And fixed it. Now that is, I didn't recognize it just now, but
here's what's important is you went and addressed it and asked for grace.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do. Now, here's the other thing is you have to be adamant about working on it. And the next time of like, oh shit, I'm sorry. All right, time out. Let me slow down. Let me explain more. And that is just that process.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of maturity to get to that point. And maybe with your daughter, it's easier. But thinking about somebody you work with, right? And they just, like you mentioned earlier, they're on step number 10 and you're already at 75. And they're like, whoa, I'm sorry. I got to slow down. Great question. Thank you for but it's what I find is we will have those relationships where we feel like I'm looking for the right word. The stakes are the lowest. If your daughter is upset with you, like, all right, if it's a work stake and you're like, man, this is important. Do we have the grace to have that much care in our relationships? And sometimes not. And sometimes the other way around. We will be the nicest, most graceful people at work, and we'll be a complete jerk, a-hole with our spouse, with our kids.
Yeah.
And neither one of those are right. And can I say that I've always gotten it right? Nope, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
And it just takes, again, admitting it and understanding and saying, all right, I'm working at this, but be adamant to work at it.
Yes, I agree with you. That is the key. Be adamant to actually be working on it and not just saying, oh, I'm working on it. Like actually be adamant. But I also...
And people don't know because eventually, if you say I'm working on it, they're like, yeah, they've been working on it for 17 years. Nothing's changed.
Yes. Okay. But I also do think that in that vulnerability to be able to say, like when we're talking about your employees, you ask your employees, what is it like working for me? And because there is that like fear of our, protecting our ego and protecting, but I would encourage people, man, that's where trust is formed. that's where
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that's where trust is formed, with my kids and me going. So for like me, outside of, I'm going to go into the relational aspect of it. When I'm anxious, I tend to get irritable. And so, and that's my fly response. And I will go, and if that happens, I'll go to my kids and say, that was not about you. I was scared. And my immediate response was, and I'll say that was not about you. And I think the more vulnerable we are about our weaknesses, now I'm not saying, I do understand, yes, some people would take advantage of it, but I can't control other people. I can only control me.
Yeah.
I can only control.
Here's my opinion there. If we're worried about people taking advantage of our vulnerabilities, we will become lonely, bitter, and upset. And so that's just a risk that we have to take.
Yes.
And my belief on this is once you admit it, people can't use it against you. It's already known. If a basketball team, their lineup is they're all 6 foot and below.
Yeah.
Somebody can't come in and say, man, you're a super short basketball team. Yeah, we all know it. But we're going to press you. We're going to outwork you. We're going to make better cuts. We're going to set better screens. I don't care if you're all 6'10". We will do what is at our advantage and frustrate you so much to give us an advantage. So our owner vulnerability, great, you can know it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily give you an advantage to use. And my belief is once we admit those vulnerabilities, man, the relationship fruit that comes from it is so much more powerful. It's like, my insecurity gets the best of me. What you just said is those willingness to be, it is my anxiety that, got me. And somebody's like, okay, great. I appreciate Megan. I trust Megan. I know what's going on with Megan. That doesn't bother me, right?
Yeah. And be okay with, for time, I'm going to move on to it because I really want to hit on this real quick. But with burnout and staffing, what are policies that support work-life balance for your staff? And one of the things, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. So for me, if you give me something, like if you give me like a list of things to do, I had a job. It was a 40-hour full-time job for like 5 years. And I'm not exaggerating. Like I'm truly not exaggerating. I would get every single bit of what needed to be done that week in one day. And then the rest of the week I'd be like, I have nothing to do. But that's because that's just how I'm wired to like just go. And so like with other things, like if you give me a task, it's going to get done. And then I'm going to spend the rest of the week. So what are some work life, like what's your thought on working to goals instead of working to a clock? Could that help with work-life balance? What's your thought on that?
Man, this is, I was just at an event last week and some of the speakers talked about it. It's something talked about a lot. I think generationally it is becoming so different, especially for Gen Z. Many of the millennials have, had a different approach compared to other generations. This idea of balance is so difficult and argued against and you kind of discussed. And I think the idea is you have to figure out what works for you. And what works for you is what are your goals? What are the organization's goals? What are you doing to be clear with everything in order that people know? And so, for example, if it was you in that situation, I can get everything done in a day. And someone's like, well, sorry, you got to come around here and sit for the other 4 days, just twiddle your thumbs. I'm like, what are we trying to accomplish?
Right.
Are we just, rubber stamping and that's good enough? Or, hey, can we look at this differently? Because this is what's happening, is a younger generation is forcing people to take a look at that and say, I'm just not going to put up with it. And there's enough numbers and they're in a place that they can do it. And so as leaders, this idea of balance, to me, it's very much of where are we going? What's the vision? What needs to get done? What's the time frame? Being so clear there and say, just get it done, because this is what's happened in education. Is that's what's happened for students. It's just get it done. There is no longer a timeline. And if there's a timeline, we better be very clear that that timeline is important, because most students today, my 3 high school kids, don't have many timelines. It's just kind of like, well, you got to get it done by whatever. And it doesn't matter if the assignment is technically due today or 3 months from today. It just is get it done. And so we have to understand that in the workplace, and to encourage people to do more. If that's what it is, then we have to give them a picture of more.
Sure.
And so where I think balance is difficult is coming back to this burnout perspective. Are you asking people to do things they don't feel equipped or don't understand why they're doing it? You're not going to get anywhere. And the quality of work is like, maybe string it out. And so it's really a whole conversation that I think is different for every single organization. A manufacturing facility, a farm, a trucking business is way different than a Big Brothers. It is way different than a nonprofit. It's way different than a mortgage company. It's way different than a school. And you have to understand is if I say balance is one thing, it can't be the other. Like, I fully believe if you're a parent, don't ever miss your kid's stuff. Be there. Now, is that absolute? No, because sometimes you will, but make the intention to be there. Well, if you're a teacher and depending on the rules, like, that's easier said than done. It's not always easy to say, hey, my kids have a musical performance at 9 o'clock. I need to go to that. And you're in the middle of teaching class and we don't have a sub. It's a little harder. But that's where that balance comes into. It's like, all right, I get that. But there's also other caveats that come with the job is, you're on a school schedule. Maybe you have, the summers, those free. And so it's really that is the balance that is different everywhere.
Because if you do have a position, like you said, you're not doing something that requires, you to be there for the full 40 hours.
Yeah.
But you're right. Burnout is going to happen when you are missing your kids' stuff after you've already hit all the goals for the week, because you have to be in the office because your boss is saying, well, it's 40 hours. I'm paying you for 40 hours. And then you miss, and that is going to, I feel like it is a one-way ticket for your employees to go, screw this. I am not going to
because there's too many options.
Yes.
Because we're in such a gig economy where people are like, if you can do it in 15 minutes and it takes someone else 30 minutes, that just means you're more valuable. So if you can get all the work done in 12 hours, what it takes someone else 40, well, then you're just a more valuable person. And you should, like our capitalistic world says, don't punish me for my abilities and my efficiency. The capitalistic world rewards that. And so this idea that, it's punching a clock really is not in line with, capitalistic views on entrepreneurship, whatever else. And it's really I would say socialistic, but it is, and just kind of like inequality factors, like, well, just string it out. And that is where those two, I would say, two structures in our world come to massive clash. That's what we see going on in our government today, and everyone that's like, well, this is just the way it is. I'm like, the rest of us don't operate that way. So maybe that works for you, but the rest of us that have had to justify our work to every single client, someone that's had to figure out, and we just don't get a rubber stamped contract that comes every quarter, every year. Like, you're out there fighting for it and saying, what are you doing with it? Make it show. And so we see that in our world today, not only in government institutions, but also in other institutions. And now this fight, what I believe is coming back to our earlier conversations. The better leaders we have navigate that going forward. And saying, the reality is we needed to be more efficient. I'm sorry, the only way we're going to get more efficient is we rip off the Band-Aid. Hey, Megan, you can do as much work as someone can do in 10 hours that can do in 40 hours. Why don't we get rid of 3 people? That gives you more to do. You have a big title. You make more money because we're getting rid of those people. You're more important. You're more fulfilled. Dude, that's good for everyone, instead of saying, well, we just have to employ 5 people to employ 5 people. It's like, that isn't how our world really, really works. So,
I think that's so good. Tyler, this has been genuinely so good. And I wish we could talk even more, because what you are bringing to the table, I just think is so valuable to leaders. I mean, it was valuable to me. How many times did I say, oh, wait, I just, it's so good. If someone is listening and they're going, I need Tyler as a coach. We need to switch things up in our office. We need to switch things up in business. Tyler absolutely is who I am looking for. Yeah. How can they find you? And and are you, because you're out of state, so you're Zoom, all the things. Can you give us the info?
Yep. Yeah. So the easiest thing to do is go to my website, tylerdickerhoof.com. You can find ways to work with me. I host what I call the Leadership Roundtable. That is a weekly Zoom and cohort groups. We do that February through November. You can also listen to my podcast, The Tyler Dickerhoof Show, wherever you listen to podcasts, or YouTube. A lot more content on YouTube. So this is what I have to say and all that. If you go to my website, you can find all that stuff. But more importantly, Megan, thank you so much for having me as a guest, for this time to chat and just spend time with you. I appreciate it.
It was so good, Tyler. So good.